Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any suggestions for us to make the channel better, please let us know. Now let's start with the story. My name is Robert, and I'm 31 now, married to the most amazing woman I've ever known. We've been together for 6 years, and in that time, we've built a life. We have a bright, hilarious little 3-year-old daughter, and just a few months ago we welcomed our son into the world. That's when everything really blew up. But to understand how we got to that breaking point, I need to rewind years back, actually, and walk you through the crap that built up like a pressure cooker ready to explode. From the very beginning, my family never liked my wife. Never even pretended to try. They gave her the cold shoulder from the moment they met her. And the only reason I ever got from them? She doesn't go to their church. That's it. My parents are what you'd call hyper-religious. The kind who go to church 3 times a week, Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday evening, and spend the rest of the time judging everyone else who doesn't follow the same script. My mom especially took it upon herself to be the moral police. She'd make these little passive-aggressive comments that were always cloaked in fake concern. Things like, "We're praying for you both to find your way back to the Lord." Or she'd look at my wife with this sugar-sweet smile and ask, "So when are you planning to get right with God, dear?" Every single time, my wife would just smile, tight-lipped, and gracefully change the subject. She never snapped back, never let on how much it probably grated on her. Because she's classier than I am. I can admit that. Now, my parents are both retired. My dad put in 40 years at some manufacturing plant blue-collar work, tough hours. My mom spent most of her life as a secretary at some insurance place. They get Social Security now, but let's just say it's not enough for the lifestyle they still want to maintain. So, guess who picked up the slack? Yep, me. For the last 5 years, I've been paying their mortgage. $1,200 a month. On top of that, I covered their utilities another $300 to $400 depending on the season. I pay their cell phone bill. I even send them grocery money some months when they say they're short. Add it all up, and I've been handing over around $2,000 a month. Out of my own pocket. Every single month. You know what the worst part is? My wife never complained. Not once. That money could have gone to a better house. We could have moved to a nicer school district for our daughter. We could have built our savings. But she let it go because she saw how tangled up I was in trying to keep my family from falling apart. She supported me, supported them, without asking for anything back. Now, my sister, that's a whole different story. She's always been the golden child. Always got everything she wanted handed to her on a silver platter, while I had to fight for the scraps of attention left over. When we were kids, she'd get brand new clothes for the school year. Meanwhile, I got hand-me-downs from our cousin even if they didn't fit right. For her 16th birthday, a brand new car. Not even a "congrats, you were in this car." Just "here you go, sweetheart." Me? When I turned 16, Mom said, "You can use my car sometimes if you pay for gas." I didn't even argue. I knew better. So I worked my ass off for 3 straight years, taking every part-time job I could get after school and over summers. Eventually, I scraped together just enough to buy a beat-up old Honda. Thing broke down every other month. These days, my sister's life looks like a damn Hallmark movie. She's married to some finance guy, real buttoned-up type, whose family has money. Old money. They live in one of those identical-looking upscale neighborhoods with manicured lawns, 3-car garages that actually have cars in them instead of tools and storage bins like the rest of us. She doesn't work. Just posts all day on Instagram and Facebook about being a boy mom. She's got 3 sons, little blonde clones of her husband, and she fills her feed with inspirational quotes in cursive fonts over pastel backgrounds. Pictures of their spotless kitchen. Selfies in Lululemon gear. #blessed. #grateful. #boymomlife. Honestly, sometimes I scroll past her posts and have to physically stop myself from throwing my phone across the room. Here's the kicker, though. Even though she and her husband probably rake in triple what my wife and I make, we both work full-time, modest jobs. Nothing fancy. I'm the one expected to support our parents financially. Every time I brought it up, the excuse was the same. Your sister has her hands full with the boys. Or, they have their own expenses with that big house. Meanwhile, I'm budgeting down to the last dime to cover my mortgage and theirs. She goes on vacation 4 times a year. Cruises, ski trips, Disneyland. Meanwhile, my wife and I might scrape together enough for a long weekend at the beach once a year, if we're lucky. We've always lived modestly, a small 3-bedroom house in an okay neighborhood. We drive used cars we paid for in cash. No frills. No debt. Just keeping our heads above water. And still, most of the extra money we had went one of 2 places, to my parents or into savings for our kids' college funds. And through all of it, every sacrifice, every missed upgrade, every time we passed on something so we could help them, my wife never once complained. Not once. She'd just look at me and say, "They're your family." I swear, she's a saint. I tried talking to my sister about it more than once. Sat down with her over coffee, even called her on the phone. "Look," I said once, "Mom and Dad's mortgage is getting tough for us to cover every month. Can you pitch in? Even a few hundred would help." She sighed dramatically and said, "Ugh, Rob, you know the boys' private school tuition is insane. Plus, we're saving up for the pool this year. It's just not a great time." Not a great time. Right. Another time she said, "Well, you're so good at budgeting. And you guys don't need as much, right? We've got a lot going on right now." Bullshit. Every excuse under the sun. And every time I brought it up with my parents, they'd wave it off. "Your sister has different responsibilities. She's got her hands full. You understand, don't you, Rob?" It was always assumed that I would just handle it. Why? I don't even know anymore. Maybe because I was dumb enough to say yes the first time and they took that as a lifelong contract. And honestly, the money itself wasn't even the biggest issue, not really. What cut deeper was the total lack of appreciation. No thank you. No recognition. I'd come by and drop off the envelope with the mortgage payment, and instead of a "Thanks, son," I'd get stuff like, "Is your daughter wearing that outside? It's chilly today." Or, "Your wife really should try to make it to church someday." Meanwhile, my sister would show up to family gatherings without so much as a pie or a pack of napkins, and my parents would practically trip over themselves to greet her and her boys like royalty. It was the same song and dance every single holiday. We'd walk in, me, my wife, and our daughter, and my mom would barely even acknowledge my wife. A rushed hello, maybe a quick pat on our daughter's head, and then she was off, gushing over my nephews. "Oh, look at these handsome boys. They grow bigger every time I see them. I don't know how your sister does it, Robert. 3 boys, 3. And she makes it look effortless." My wife. She'd always offer to help in the kitchen. Always. And every time, my mom would give her some throwaway task like peeling carrots or setting the table. Meanwhile, my sister would be camped out on the living room couch, glued to her phone, occasionally throwing out a forced laugh at something someone said. Yet somehow, she was the one being praised like she was Mother Teresa just for showing up. It used to burn a hole in my gut, but I said nothing. I swallowed it. Time and time again. I guess I thought that's what family was supposed to be: sacrificing, enduring, taking care of each other even when the scales were tipped so unfairly it made your head spin. Besides, there was always this unspoken pressure. If I stopped helping, I'd be the bad guy, the ungrateful son, the disappointment who turned his back on his aging parents. I could hear it already: "After all we've done for you." And my sister? She fed into it. Every opportunity she got. One Christmas, after I'd just handed over an envelope with the year-end mortgage and utility payments, she gave me this sideways glance and said with a syrupy voice, "Wow, Rob, you're so generous. We all get it, you're the provider." It was the tone that did it. That smug little twist in her voice, like I was only doing it for attention. Like I was performing. Now, writing all this out. Yeah, I'm pissed. Pissed at myself for putting up with it for so long. I should have drawn the line years ago. Set boundaries. Said no. Demanded that someone else step up. But I didn't. I kept letting it roll, kept doing what I thought a son was supposed to do. And things just kept rolling the way they always had until my wife got pregnant with our son. That's when everything finally started to crack. At first, it was subtle. We told my parents the news, and their response was lukewarm at best. No celebration, no excitement. Just a half-hearted "Oh, that's nice," followed by an immediate pivot to whatever drama was happening in my sister's life. And my sister? She didn't even fake it. She sent a text. "Congrats, another little one. You guys are brave, haha." Then went right back to posting Pinterest quotes and planning their next vacation to Florida. Meanwhile, my wife was running herself ragged. Juggling work, OB appointments, chasing after our daughter, barely getting sleep, and I was doing everything I could to support her while still covering my parents' bills. I remember mentioning to my mom, "We might need some help when the baby comes. Maybe you could come by once in a while or help with our daughter." Her response? "God will provide." No offer to help. No follow-up question. Just that. And of course, my sister had to chime in when I brought it up in front of her too. She rolled her eyes and said, "You signed up for this, Rob. Don't expect everyone else to jump in just because it's hard." That's when it really hit me. When they needed something: money, time, attention, I was expected to show up, no questions asked. But when we needed support, we were on our own. Totally and completely. And I guess I shouldn't have been surprised when that reality slammed into me full force the night my wife went into labor. Last month, everything came to a head. It was 2 in the damn morning when my wife went into labor 3 weeks early. We were both jolted out of sleep, heart racing, head spinning. She sat up gasping, gripping her belly, and said, "Something's happening." I scrambled out of bed, trying to remember everything we'd talked about. Go bag. Where the hell did I put the go bag? car keys, phone charger. But the biggest issue hit us both at the same time: our daughter, 3 years old, sound asleep down the hall, and no one to watch her. Our babysitter, a sweet college student who lives a block over. But there was no way I could justify waking her up and asking her to rush over in the middle of the night. This wasn't a drill, though. My wife was hunched over the kitchen counter, breathing in ragged gasps, and I was flying around the house like a lunatic, knocking things off tables, trying to get everything together. My hands were shaking so badly I dropped the diaper bag twice. "Where are the wipes?" I shouted from the hallway. "In the nursery, on the shelf," she groaned, then doubled over again. I ran back in, grabbed the wipes, shoved them into the bag, and stopped for half a second. I looked at my daughter's bedroom door. Still closed. Still silent. We were stuck. With no other option, I grabbed my phone and called the only other person I could think of, my mother. My thumb hovered for a second before I hit call. The phone rang twice. She picked up groggily. "Hello, Mom," I said, trying to steady my voice. "I need your help. It's happening. She's in labor. We need to go to the hospital now. Can you please come watch Mia? Just for a few hours." There was a pause. Then she said, with this weak, breathy voice, "Oh, honey, I just can't tonight. My arthritis is acting up something terrible. I can barely get out of bed. I'm so sorry." I blinked. My pulse thudded in my ears. "Mom," I said, forcing calm into my voice, "I can bring her to you. It's the middle of the night. She'll probably sleep the whole time. Please, we don't have anyone else." She sighed again, dragging out the words like they hurt her mouth to say. No, I just can't. I'm in too much pain. I couldn't possibly keep up with a 3-year-old right now. You know how active she is." "Active?" I almost laughed. "Mia is the calmest kid I've ever met. She can sit at the kitchen table and color for an hour without moving. She's not climbing the walls. She's not tearing through the house like a tornado. She just needed a warm bed and someone nearby if she woke up scared." And still my mother said no. That was the moment. The moment something cracked inside me. Frustration, disbelief, hurt. It all collided in my chest, a tight, burning knot that made it hard to breathe. This wasn't just a bad night. This wasn't just arthritis. This was confirmation of what I had always suspected but never wanted to say out loud. I wasn't family. I was just the guy who paid the bills. Useful, not important. I turned to see my wife gripping the kitchen counter, her face twisted in pain, teeth clenched. "Robert," she hissed, "we have to go. Now." I stared at the phone still clutched in my hand, then at the ceiling, and I realized I didn't have time to process it. I needed someone. Anyone. So I did what I already knew was a lost cause, but I tried anyway. I grabbed my phone and typed out a quick message to my sister. "Emergency. Wife's in labor. Need someone to watch Mia for a few hours." I hit send and stared at the screen. Within seconds, those 3 little dots popped up, like she was about to respond. My heart jumped a little. Then came the message. "This is really bad timing. We have an early morning with the boys, and I need sleep. Sorry, can't help." That was it. No hope. No everything goes well. No congratulations. Just a half-assed excuse and a brush-off, like I was asking her to babysit for fun, not because my wife was literally about to give birth. I stared at the screen, my stomach churning, before shoving my phone into my pocket. Of course. The golden child had spoken. Desperation took over. I started calling friends, my hands shaking as I dialed number after number. Most didn't answer. It was 2 in the morning, after all. But then, finally, Mike picked up. Mike's this guy who lives 30 minutes away, has work in the morning, but the moment I told him what was going on, he didn't hesitate. "I'm on my way," he said. No questions. No hesitation. That's when I knew something important. Family isn't just about the people you grew up with. It's about who shows up. Mike got to our house around 2:30 in the morning. By then, my wife's contractions were about 4 minutes apart. We rushed to the hospital, barely making it in time. Our son was born at 5 a.m. Healthy but small, since he was early. My wife was incredible through the whole thing, an absolute warrior. After they were stable and resting, I headed out to pick up Mia from Mike's place around noon. Mike's wife had taken the day off work to help out, made pancakes for Mia, even braided her hair. Those people are angels. On the way back to the hospital, I suddenly realized we needed the extra car seat base we keep at my parents' house for when they rarely watch Mia. I was exhausted, running on 0 sleep, emotionally drained from the birth, but I figured I'd just swing by, grab it quick, and head back to the hospital. I used my key to let myself in. I've had one for years since I'm always checking on them or fixing things around their house. It was around dinner time when I walked in, and the first thing I heard was laughter. Lots of it. I followed the noise to the dining room, and what did I find? A full-on family dinner party. My sister, her husband, their 3 boys, and my parents all sitting around the table like some perfect Norman Rockwell painting. Good food, wine glasses, the works. And there was my mom, the same woman who this morning said her arthritis was so bad she could barely move, chasing my 4-year-old nephew around the living room, tickling him as he shrieked with laughter. The second they saw me standing there, everything froze. The laughter stopped instantly. My mom's face twisted into this weird expression, guilty for a split second before switching to annoyed, like I was the one who did something wrong by showing up unannounced. "Oh, we weren't expecting you," she said, flustered. "How's everything?" She didn't even remember my wife was in labor or just didn't care. No one at the table asked about my wife or the baby. My sister just gave me this look, like I was interrupting something important. My dad stared at his plate, pretending I wasn't there. The silence was deafening. There I was, still in the same clothes from last night, probably looking like absolute hell, holding my keys in my hand, and something inside me just snapped. "So you're too sick to help your own son when his wife is having a baby," I said, my voice calm but icy. "But you're perfectly fine hosting a dinner party." My mom immediately got defensive. "It's not a dinner party. It's just family, and your sister needed help with the boys today." I glanced over at my sister. She suddenly found her mashed potatoes super interesting and wouldn't meet my eyes. Her husband was literally right there. I pointed at him. "He doesn't work on Fridays." But sure, she needed help. My dad finally spoke up, trying to mediate. "Son, your mother's been on her feet all day. She's pushing through the pain to help your sister. But she couldn't push through it for me. For her grandchild being born," I said, voice rising. My mom waved me off dismissively. "That's different." At that point, I was full-on shouting now. "Because it's me asking, because my wife isn't good enough for you, because we don't fit into your perfect little church image." My sister's husband, who I actually don't hate, just oblivious to the whole family dynamic, looked uncomfortable as hell. The kids had gone silent, which made me lower my voice a bit. "My wife gave birth today," I said, voice steady but raw. "Our son was born at 5:13 this morning. Not that any of you bothered to ask. I had to beg a friend to watch my daughter because my own mother lied about being too sick to help." My mom started with the Waterworks classic move when she's backed into a corner. "I wasn't lying," she sniffled. "I just pushed myself to feel better because your sister." "Save it." I cut her off, voice sharp. "I get it now. I've always been an afterthought in this family. The only thing you've ever valued about me is my checkbook." At that moment, my sister shot up from her seat, hands raised like she was some hostage negotiator. All right. Let's not turn this into a scene," she said, voice sugary but tight, eyes flicking toward her husband's parents like this whole thing was such an inconvenience. "You're obviously upset. Why don't you just go home, cool off, and we'll talk later, okay?" Like I was some unhinged lunatic ruining her nice dinner. Like I was the embarrassment here. And that's when I really snapped. I let out a sharp laugh, shaking my head. "Oh, I get it now. You don't care that mom and dad treat me like a goddamn ATM. You don't care that I've spent years paying their bills while you sit in your perfect little house, posting crock #blessed selfies. You just don't want your in-laws to see what a bunch of gold-digging leeches you all are." Her husband's parents, who'd been politely silent until now, suddenly looked very interested in their wine glasses. Her husband shifted uncomfortably, clearly realizing this was no longer just a family misunderstanding, but something a hell of a lot uglier. My sister's face went pale, and she took a sharp step toward me, lowering her voice. "Jesus, can you not do this right now?" she hissed, eyes wild like she could still put the mask back on if I just shut up and left. But I wasn't done. "No, I am doing this right now," I shot back, the anger sharp and real. I was sick of the whole fake-ass act. Mom and dad treat you like royalty while I bankroll their entire existence, and you just sit back and let it happen. You know what the worst part is? If I hadn't walked in on this little dinner party, you would have let me keep paying their bills forever while they ran around lying to my face. And now that I'm done, suddenly, I'm the villain. I turned to my parents, voice cutting through the heavy silence. "You didn't need me when I called you at 2 o'clock in the morning, but now you need me because the bank's calling." Funny how that works. The silence that followed was heavy. Awkward. Exactly what they deserved. My sister clenched her jaw, glancing nervously at her husband's parents like she could still salvage the situation. "You're acting crazy," she muttered under her breath. I exhaled sharply, leveling them with a steady look. "No, I just finally see things for what they are. And guess what? The ATM is officially closed. Permanently." Without another word, I walked over to the hall closet, grabbed the car seat base, and headed for the door. But just before stepping out, I paused, turning back one last time. "Oh, and that mortgage payment I usually cover on the 1st of the month? Don't expect it ever again. You're on your own now." My mom gasped like I'd physically struck her. "You can't do that. We're your parents." I met her panicked stare, completely unfazed. "Watch me." Then I walked out and didn't look back. I got in my car, hands shaking so badly I could barely put the key in the ignition. The weight of what just happened, what I'd just said, hit me all at once. 6 years of paying their bills, rent, utilities, everything over, just like that. And you know what's crazy? I didn't feel guilty. I felt relieved. I drove to the hospital, picked up my wife and new son, got our daughter from Mike's house, and headed home. Our daughter was thrilled with her baby brother. My wife noticed something was up and asked what happened. I told her everything. She just listened, then hugged me tight and said, "It's about time." Then I grabbed my laptop, logged into every single account tied to my parents, and started cutting them off. Mortgage canceled, utilities gone, cell phone plan removed, grocery money not a dime more. Every automatic payment I'd set up for them, years of my hard-earned money funneled into their lives, without so much as a thank you, was erased in a matter of minutes. With each cancellation, I felt lighter, like I was shedding the weight of an obligation that was never really mine to begin with. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and about 30 text messages. No joke. My mom, my dad, my sister, all blowing up my phone like it was the end of the world. I didn't read most of them, just scrolled through quickly to make sure there wasn't an actual emergency. Mom's texts started with guilt trips. "How could you embarrass us like that in front of everyone? After everything we've done for you?" Then they moved to fake concern. "We're worried about you. You're not acting like yourself." By the next day, they turned to threats. "Your father is talking to his friend who's a lawyer about this." About what exactly? Me not giving them free money anymore. Good luck with that case. My sister's texts were exactly what you'd expect from her, all about how I ruined a nice family dinner and made mom cry, and how I was always so jealous of her. Not a single mention of my newborn son or my wife, who just gave birth. I blocked all their numbers without responding. Felt good, not going to lie. Then the real circus began. My phone started ringing with numbers I didn't recognize. I answered one, and it was my Aunt Mom's sister telling me how concerned everyone was and how I needed to make things right with my parents before it's too late. I hung up and blocked her too. Then came the people from their church, people I barely know, calling to tell me how disappointed they were in my behavior. How honor thy father and mother is a commandment, and all that. Block. The best one was this old lady from their church who I've met maybe twice, calling to tell me that my mother was beside herself with worry and not sleeping because of me. I actually laughed and said, "Well, now she knows how it feels to be up all night with a newborn," and hung up. My wife was amazing through all of this. She's on maternity leave, recovering from giving birth, taking care of our newborn, and still managing to keep our daughter entertained, all while I'm dealing with this family drama storm and trying to get back to work. I only took a week off because we need the money, especially now that I'm not bankrolling my parents anymore. About a week after everything went down, my sister showed up at our house. Luckily, I was at work, but my wife was home with the kids. She told me later, "Robert," she rang the doorbell about 20 times, then started calling through the mail slot like some kind of psycho. I winced. "What did you do?" My phone was in the other room, so I didn't answer. "I just texted you to let you know what was happening." Our neighbor even came over and asked my sister if she needed to call the police. According to my neighbor, my sister turned white as a sheet and took off. I haven't seen her since. But the financial fallout hit them faster than I expected. About 3 weeks after I stopped paying their bills, my dad called from a new number I hadn't blocked yet. The first thing he said? No hello or anything. "The electric company is threatening to shut off our power." Then he added, "The mortgage company called about being late." "That sounds like a problem you need to solve." I replied calmly, "Son, we're your parents. You can't just leave us high and dry like this. What are we supposed to do?" I didn't hesitate. "Well, Dad, you could get a part-time job. Mom could babysit for money instead of for free, just for my sister. You could sell that boat you never use. You could downsize to a smaller place. You have options." There was a long pause. "Son, your sister has her own expenses. So do I, Dad. Like a new baby, for instance. You could try asking her husband, since y'all have been having dinner and playing family. This isn't like you, son. Your mother thinks you're having some kind of breakdown." I laughed. The breakdown was letting you guys take advantage of me for years. "Tell Mom I said hi." Then I hung up and blocked that number too. The most pathetic attempt came about a month after the initial blow-up. My dad sent me an email since he couldn't call me directly. The subject line read, "Health emergency." For a moment, my heart actually dropped. Despite everything, they're still my parents. I opened it and found a long explanation about how my mom's blood pressure was dangerously high because of the stress I was causing. According to the email, the doctor said she might have a stroke if things continued this way. It ended with this line, "We just thought you should know what you're doing to your mother's health." I stared at the screen in disbelief. I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure high blood pressure doesn't work like that. And even if it did, it's not my responsibility to maintain my mom's health by giving them thousands of dollars every month. I didn't respond to the email. Instead, I forwarded it to my sister with a short message, "Your turn." She never replied. Meanwhile, my real family, my wife and kids, were doing great. Our son started sleeping for 3 to 4 hour stretches, which honestly felt like hitting the lottery after those brutal first few weeks of hourly wake-ups. My wife's parents came to visit for a week to help out. It was actually pleasant. They cooked, helped with the kids, and not once made passive-aggressive comments or asked for money. Wild concept, I know. About 2 months after the whole thing went down, we were finally starting to find our groove as a family of 4. We were even putting money into savings instead of sending it to my parents. It felt like we could finally breathe. Then one Saturday morning, I was out in the front yard with my daughter, teaching her how to ride her new bike without training wheels. She's fearless. A car I didn't recognize pulled up. At first, I thought it was just someone turning around in our driveway. But then my parents stepped out, looking like they'd aged 10 years since I last saw them. My daughter spotted them before I could even react and yelled, "Grandparents," because, of course, she doesn't understand the situation. My mom immediately put on this sugary sweet smile that didn't reach her eyes and started walking toward my kid with her arms open. I moved between them faster than I thought possible. I kept my voice level because my daughter was right there and asked, "What are you doing at our house?" My mom acted like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "We came to see our grandchildren," she said sweetly, "especially the new baby we haven't met yet." I didn't buy it. "You're not invited," I told them flatly. "You need to leave." My dad stepped forward, hands shoved deep in his pockets, looking uncomfortable. "Please, Robert," he pleaded, "let us see the baby. Your mother's been beside herself." I muttered something sarcastic under my breath, then turned to my daughter. "Go inside and tell your mom we have visitors." She looked confused but obeyed and headed inside. My mom tried to follow, but I stepped in front of her and blocked the path. "You're not coming in. You're not seeing the baby." She blinked at me like I'd slapped her, but I held firm. "You lost that privilege when you lied about being too sick to help us and then tried to pick her up from preschool without permission." Mom tried to play it off like it was a misunderstanding, but I called her out. "Don't lie about a family emergency to avoid helping us." Just then, my wife appeared at the door. She took one look at them and quietly shut it. That's when my dad finally admitted the real reason they were here. The bank's threatening foreclosure. "We need money." I raised an eyebrow. "Did you try my sister?" Mom mumbled something about her saving for a pool, like that explained everything. I cut in, "Well, you're not my backup plan anymore." Not once had they asked my son's name. When Mom guessed wrong, I corrected her sharply. "His name is James, after the grandparent who actually cares." Mom started crying about losing their house, but I reminded her, "That's on you, not me." Then, in a last-ditch effort, she screamed about her rights to see the kids. I shut that down fast. Dad saw it was over and tried to get her to leave, but she just stared at me like I was the one who'd betrayed them. As they got into their car, I overheard Mom say, "We should have gone to a lawyer first." Then they drove off, and I just stood there, breathing. My wife came out and asked, "Are you okay?" For the first time in a long time, I really was. A few weeks after that, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that my parents had gotten desperate enough to approach my sister's in-laws for money. Apparently, they showed up unannounced at some fancy dinner party. My sister and her husband were hosting a dinner with his parents when things took a turn. My mom put on her best poor, suffering grandmother act, telling anyone who'd listen how they were about to lose their house because their ungrateful son, that's me, had cruelly abandoned them. What they didn't expect was my sister's husband actually speaking up. Turns out, he remembered that night when I caught them all having dinner while my wife was in labor. In front of his parents, he called them out, saying he'd witnessed firsthand how they'd lied about being too sick to help with my daughter, only to be perfectly fine hosting a family dinner just hours later. He was blunt. "I'm not comfortable giving money to people who treat their own son like that," he said. Mom tried to spin it as some kind of misunderstanding, but my sister's father-in-law, who apparently was a no-nonsense businessman, cut through the noise. He asked why they couldn't downsize or get part-time jobs like other retirees. Dad mumbled something about his age, but my sister's mother-in-law jumped in, pointing out that her own father still worked part-time at 75. Seeing her meal ticket slipping away, my sister jumped in to defend our parents, which led to a huge argument with her husband right there in front of everyone. According to my source, it got ugly fast. Her husband asked, "Why do you never contribute to their care if they're so important to you?" That's when things exploded. My sister called me during the chaos. I picked up, and she didn't even say hello. She just launched into a screaming tirade. "You ruined everything," she yelled so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. When I asked what she was talking about, she went ballistic. She said I'd poisoned her in-laws against our parents on purpose, that I was jealous of her life and wanted to destroy her marriage. According to her, I'd been playing the martyr for years by insisting on handling our parents' finances just to make her look bad. And now, she claimed, I deliberately sabotaged her relationship with her husband's family by making her look like some heartless person who wouldn't help her own parents. She actually said, my marriage is falling apart and it's all your fault. Before hanging up on me, I just sat there staring at my phone, shaking my head at how insane it was that even now, my sister couldn't see her own part in any of this. The night ended with her and her husband leaving separately, and my parents awkwardly driven home by one of the dinner guests. The next day, I heard my sister called my parents, blaming them for embarrassing her in front of her in-laws. Of course, my mom fired right back, saying my sister was ungrateful after everything they'd done for her. The golden child shine was definitely starting to wear off. Within a week, the gossip mill had it that my sister and her husband were in marriage counseling. My parents had to sell their house and move into a tiny apartment, and my dad actually got a job as a greeter at a big box store. And my sister? She flat out refused to let them move in with her, even though she had 4 empty bedrooms in that massive house. The final straw came when my mom, desperate, suggested my sister sell some of her designer handbags to help with their bills. According to my cousin, my sister screamed that it was all my fault for ruining everyone's lives. Funny how quickly the golden child status evaporates when money's involved and when the backup plan, me, is no longer available. And yeah, it's been 6 months now. Our son is crawling everywhere, getting into everything he can reach. Our daughter started kindergarten and absolutely loves it. We moved into a house in a better school district, not anything fancy, just a decent 4-bedroom with a good yard. The mortgage is actually less than what we were paying for our old place, plus my parents' bills. I can't help but think that's pretty damn ironic. Last week, we took the kids to the park. I was pushing my daughter on the swing, watching her squeal with delight as she went higher and higher. My wife was sitting nearby, holding our son, who was gurgling happily in her arms. In that moment, I realized something important. I'm happy, genuinely happy. Without the constant drain of my toxic family's demands and expectations, I can finally focus on what really matters: my wife, my kids, our future together. Sometimes standing up for yourself means walking away from people who've known you your whole life. And sometimes that's exactly what you need to do to start really living. This my daughter laughing, my son cooing, my wife smiling, this right here is what family should feel like. Not obligation or guilt or constant demands. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.